be a new game, couldn't it? The squash toss. Got to try and catch it in a way that's not right, so let's have a look at what it looks like. Well, it looks cool, like a massive orange thing in the corner. Let's have a look at it. Yep, you see, oh, goodness gracious. Doesn't that just look brilliant? Look at that. Need to go and get a knife, really. Right. Look at that. Be interesting to know how much it weighs. I'm going to weigh it in a moment, but look at it. It's a fascinating looking squash, isn't it? I had it on these trestles here, and obviously I didn't secure it properly. As you know, I'm pretty open about sharing my mistakes. But yes, that's crashed to the ground. I'm not going to obviously be cooking this in one in one sitting. That's quite big. Okay, so this one here, been in the ground longer, and it's a deeper orange colour. So this is going to be staying on the vine. There's no danger of it, you know, coming to any damage here, really. I hope. But yeah, so that's the other one. Well, I've just weighed it, so it's 6.2 kilograms, which is 13.64 pounds. Now, bearing in mind that I don't think this one is actually quite ready yet. I think it would be a deeper, more of an orangey colour if it was ready. But the fact that it's crashed off the vine and the vine's broke mean it had to be picked. So I'm confident it'll taste good. I mean, what I've read is that it's actually a sweet taste, which will be very, very nice indeed. So a closer look at it. It's a warty looking squash. Now, what I'm going to do when I pick the other one, which hopefully will mature fully, I will be doing like a profile picture on it, so that you know, we can learn more about squashes, because I think the potential of squashes is enormous, because many of them, such as this, can be kept into the winter. And when it comes in terms of you know, food security and food sort of you know, semi-self-sufficiency, partial self-sufficiency, I think that squashes could be a big part of it. And if not that, you know, just the ability to be able to grow a delicious, nice, large vegetable, either at the allotment or in your own backyard. Why not, hey? Oh, yeah. Whoops! Right, so what I'm doing now is I'm currently in the middle of my, not in the middle, but thoroughly commencing and doing my evening watering routine. Now, I like to give, you know, it's been very dry actually, so I'm just doing some watering of the plants here. Now, you may remember that these strawberry plants here, I potted these up the other day, and I'm ensuring that they have a good, I'm giving them a good watering, because it's very dry at the moment and warm, and I want to make sure that they have the greatest possible chance of taking and getting a good degree of root establishment ready for next year. So strawberries over here, we've got a persimmon here, we've got pomegranate there, 3 blueberry plants which cropped amazingly this year, fig here, and more strawberries here. So I've got these strawberries here. Now these are indeed in what one could describe an ideal spot. So we've got the south facing wall here, which gets very, very warm indeed, and I've got the grapes, I've got the strawberry plants in front. The reason I put them here, yes, there's no not fruiting, you know, get the odd fruit at this time of year, but they're largely finished. But I want a lot of these, I've recently just put in these tubs, and I want them to expand well. I want them to establish well for you know, for next year, to get a good root structure ready for next year for good cropping. Like, they started to put out new roots already, so that's one reason why I've put them here. Now, again, in front of the south-facing wall, I've got the persimmon here, variety Fuyu, and the pomegranate variety Provence. I've got that here as well, in front of the south-facing wall. And here, the fig as well, that is indeed also in the south-facing area. I'm really happy actually with how this little bed here is doing, considering the utter failure of the melon project. But this spinach is looking just so deliciously healthy. And over here, I'm leaving this patty pan squash to get big. I want to see, the recommendation is you pick them before they get too big, but I just want to let that get big and see how big indeed that will indeed get. Indeed. Yeah, and I mean in here as well. These grapes, just every time I look at them, they're starting to get, you know, more colour. And I don't think it's going to be long before I can pick these. Should we pick one? Quite nice size. Yeah, they're actually, they're perfectly edible. They are perfectly edible as they are. Now, I will say that they will benefit from another week or so on there. But the skins are crisp and they're tasty. Another week or so, or 2 weeks even, will sweeten them up and they will be delicious. Now, I've had a few questions. I get a lot of questions, and thank you for those. Keep them coming, please, because not only you know, do you hopefully get the answer, I will learn from giving answers as well. So that's a good thing. So keep the questions coming. Now, some people have asked me about you know, growing stuff in places where the sun is not. The plants don't have ideal, what's the term? Ideal exposure to the sun all day. Now, yes, I do have a south-facing garden, which I'm very, very grateful for, but it's not in, a lot of it is not in full sunshine all day because I'm actually surrounded by buildings, okay? So yes, I've got a south-facing garden, but you know, not everything is getting massive amounts of sunlight. Now, you can see, but just the grapes I've showed you. Now, this polytunnel does not, it's not as bright as other polytunnels that I've had in previous projects because of where it had to be situated. And part of gardening is, you know, if you can't always have everything ideal. Obviously, ideal is best, but this grapevine is not in full sun all day, and the fact that some of you have pointed out as well about, because it's this polytunnel with the sort of green reinforcing and all that jazz, green plastic, it doesn't let all the light through, and that is indeed the case, different to if one had maybe one of those clear polytunnels. But I still rate this, I rate this polytunnel incredibly high. It's a Feel Good UK. I've had one of these before, a much larger one on a previous project, and they truly are brilliant. In fact, now I know what I know, I would not actually go back to any different design because I like to stick with what works for me. But these grapes here are ripening perfectly well, even though they are not in an ideal situation. So the point I want to try and get across to people is, if you are not able to grow everything in an ideal situation, make the best with what excuse me, make the best of what you've got, because in this situation, at this time, that's all you're going to get, really. You know, you can obviously make arrangements for the future, but the here and now, you use what you already have, and that's what indeed I have done. All right, so it's an important message to remember. So, for instance, down here, it probably gets a good amount of sun in the morning, but that's about it. Maybe a good 4 hours of sun, I would say, down here. But, you know, the rest of it, it's kind of in partial shade, all right? But you can see, you know, it doesn't appear to have affected the... Hang on. somebody else's phone. It doesn't appear to have affected this spinach too much, has it? And you know, looking good there. And the Swiss chard down here. Swiss chard tends to be a bit of a slower grower than spinach. So if you set them at the same time and your Swiss chard is a bit on the drag, don't worry, because it does tend to move a bit slower. But it hasn't affected that. And the squash down here, look, it's not affecting that, is it? And you've seen this, what was it, 6.2 kilo, however many pounds, 13.64 pound squash. Hasn't affected that, has it? Too much. The grapevine here, this is facing the southeast, and this does get a fair degree of sunshine here, but not all day, okay? It gets a good 8 hours, which is one reason why I put this vine here. But, you know, if you've got a grape and you want to put it in, and you can only get 6 hours of sunshine, you know, direct sunshine in that day, to put it in if that's the only place you've got, because I think you're better off having a go and growing something. And you know, we can't all have ideal conditions. And here, the pear tree, guess what direction that's facing? That's facing southeast. Not quite ready yet, but won't be long. Pretty hard still, but yes, this is just gonna be amazing. Okay, so when one gets an idea of raspberries in their head, they get the idea, or can get the idea, of a lovely long strip of raspberries all immaculately tied up in a nice straight line. Well, you know, we don't all have that degree of space either, so you can see that the way I'm growing mine is almost as a little bush. And what I'm probably going to do is to have make a little thing maybe out of wood, or get a little obelisk or whatever that you grow roses up, and maybe tie them to that. But I'm not letting lack of space limit me to the degree that it indeed could. And I'm doing this through a process of sort of determination, largely planning, and being willing to grow plants in less than an optimum position, because at the end of the day, if I want to have them, I've got to do this, because I don't have you know, copious amounts of ideal space. Okay, so I think you've worked out the purpose of this video, and the point that I want to get across is that don't be limited. Don't, you know, if you're not in ideal conditions, you know, whether to do with space, whether to do with the time that you can devote to your gardening. You know, I've spoke about this before, but if you have to work 6 days a week to pay the rent or the mortgage, and they're 10-hour days, and the only day you've got is Sunday to do your garden, you know, have a go at something, you know, but don't overcomplicate it in a circumstance like that. Maybe have a go at, you know, some, next year this would be, but some tomatoes, or maybe just one or two fruit trees in some pots, you know. Tailor your gardening and your efforts and whatever you want to do, tailor them to your situation, because everybody's situation is different, and it's important to take this all into consideration when you start to, you know, start to embark on it. Because I speak to people and they have a go at gardening, and they get despondent because they put stuff in and it doesn't go right. So just take your time and, you know, learn. And the worst thing you can do is to not have a go, I think. So there is one thing that must be considered though, and that is what Beth Chateau said. Beth Chateau, however you want to say it, but she, you know, was a very respected gardener, and Beth Chateau Gardens, you want to check those out. If you can't visit them, you know, check them out on the internet. Very, very lovely place, and she's very held in very high regard in regards to gardening. So check it out. But she said, right plant, right place, which sounds incredibly simple, but you know, it's very, very important. So dry gardens and so much, but I don't want to babble on too much and bore you, but I think you've worked out what the purpose of this video is. So anyway, comments, questions, what's it down below. See you next time, and if you like my work, please feel free to like, share and subscribe.